Gooners of the world, football fans, welcome to today's Saturday, July 24th edition of the Uncensored Arsenal live stream. It is my pleasure to introduce the one and only Stephen Mills, 1978 Gooner. Stephen, your family has been supporting Arsenal since 1927, you tell me? Tell people about yourself before Blackburn George fires away. Tell me a little bit about yourself as a Gooner. When did you start supporting, and and how it relates to your family?
Okay, so I started just before the cup final, 1978, around about the time of the semi-final against Orient, as they were in
Could
those
you
days.
speak up a little louder, Millsy?
Yeah, sorry, mate. So just before the 1978 cup final,
Yes.
and it was probably around about the time of the semi-final against Orient that we won 3-0, I think.
Yes.
So, and therefore from then on.
The only thing I know about Leighton Orient was that their names used to be called on the football pools.
Well, they've scraped back into the leagues now again, haven't they? But so and then but before that, you know, I'm related to one of the guy who really started Dial Square FC, and then
Dial Square FC, right?
That's right. And then he was involved with starting the Royal Arsenal. Apparently, my mother told me just before Christmas or just afterwards that I'm related to Charlie Williams, who was the first goalkeeper at Arsenal, at Royal Arsenal.
Really?
I think he ended up somewhere in South America, something like that. So, and then my grandfather was an Arsenal fan as well, but he was he's quite complex as an Arsenal fan because as a kid,
Mills?
Yeah,
Millsy,
yes,
you might have to come closer to the microphone because I'm
Okay.
hardly hearing you. Are you hearing him, George?
I can hear him, yeah.
Okay. So, and my grandfather was an Arsenal fan, and although later in life he was a little bit more, he wasn't fanatical or anything like that, and as I said to you before, there was the legend of the 1927 Cup final ticket.
Wow.
And always there was this idea that the ticket was kicking around somewhere in a box or something like that, and but it never got located.
Wow. Mills.
Yes, ma'am.
Mills, I have 5 people on the live stream, and I'm sure they want to hear you. I wonder if they are hearing you. Can you guys on the live stream, 8 people, can you post a comment? Are you hearing Mills? Because I'm not hearing him well. And this is very, very important information. And I also want to welcome the one and only Wengarula from out of Pakistan. Can someone in the live stream post a comment? Because I'm hardly hearing Mills. George is hearing him. Are you hearing him, Wengarula?
I don't know.
Hey guys, how are you?
Say something first.
Yeah. Stan Hope, who is always watching, says you need to speak up because it's unwatchable as the volume is uneven.
Oh dear. Let me mess around with it for a few minutes and see what I can do.
Okay, guys.
You carry on.
We're gonna let me and George dick around in the meantime. Mills, I'm gonna take you out for and then bring you back in because you're giving us some very important information there. There hardly anybody that I see online, well, can tell us about going back to Dial Square and the Royal Arsenal. And I think, people need to get a perspective of somebody who has been around the club, whose family has been around the club for a long time. Just try to figure that one out and we'll try to get you back in, okay? Bengarula, how about you? Hello, are you there?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good, my friends. I'm good. I'm just glad that you can hear me this time around.
Yes, you well. That's what we were. You were supposed to be one of the interviewers of Mills. Vengarula, you have been Pakistan. You know the reason why I love hearing from you. Most people assume Pakistan is just a big cricketing country, Oh, and you play hockey at at a very high level there. But how on earth a Pakistani is supporting Arsenal and involved in football? You are in football as an administrator, as a coach, and as a diehard supporter of Arsenal. How did you start supporting Arsenal?
Oh, that's a long story, long story. It was basically, I don't know if you still get those Panini cards in England, but
George
basically
can
my
tell you. Do you
first
still have
introduction
Panini
to,
cards, George? Keep
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
Vengarula. Yes.
yeah,
yeah. So my one of my uncles actually had gotten a fellowship to the Royal College in England. He was a doctor. So he had gotten a fellowship and he had gone to London to practice. And my cousin came back with these paninis. And my first panini was actually Ian Wright.
Really?
So, yes, absolutely. So there's this, young black striker. And my cousin had a collection of these cards. So he had the Crystal Palace ones, he had the Arsenal ones, but he had everything. And I fell in love with this guy. Who is he? This guy is all swag. This guy is all style. Who the hell is this guy? But my first real Arsenal interaction was actually it was at one of my aunt's house because at that time, early 90s, not everyone had satellite television. But those who did, they could watch live English football. And
Right.
so one day I caught an Arsenal game at my aunt's house. And lo and behold, it was the same guy whose panini I had, who had teamed up with some gentleman called Dennis Bergkamp, and they were ripping apart Middlesbrough. It
Middlesbrough. Oh,
was, I
really?
think, a game at Highbury, and they ripped Borough apart. And just those two. You didn't even need to care who was in midfield, who was in defense. Just those
Really?
two strikers, they just they just tore them apart, and I was hooked. This was Arsene Wenger's first year at the club, and I was just hooked. I was like, okay, this is something I can get behind.
So
Like
did
many
you
others, I was yeah. Sorry, go on.
were you playing football at the time, or did you start playing football just because of the Arsenal?
I didn't play football as much. I was more of a cricket guy at the time, but
Of course.
football was something that was I was picking up at the time. More, I would say, when I started playing, it was more of a goalkeeper and a defense because there was a short, plumpish kid who was trying to run across. So they would either put me in defense or they'd put me goalkeeper. But over the years, it kind of became an obsession because, well, it was Arsene Wenger, and his teams were just beautiful. He just draw you in.
You
We had a physics teacher by the name of Suhail.
yes.
He was a Manchester United fan, and so just as I was kind of getting into Arsenal, we landed in his class, and he used to go on and on about Manchester United this, Manchester United that, blah blah. That year was the first year that Arsene Wenger had taken down Alex Ferguson. Arsenal won the first double that year
Really?
when we had our classes, our physics
That was
classes.
98, I
And so,
think.
as a young 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, that's how, it was like, the physics teacher, look, we won, you lost. He was a good teacher, but he was a terrible
Yeah,
student.
97. 97, 98, Wenger ruler. Oh, he's George, your chance to ask him questions. It seems like it's gone. Well, that put paid to that. Let's hang on if we get Mills back in. Mills, how are you
Try it
now?
now. Is it working now?
No, it's not.
Oh no. I've got the mic up as high as it can go.
No, it's
Um,
not.
what
This
about
is
now?
not a very good live stream, people. Mills and I tested this yesterday, and you were very
What about now?
nope.
No, nothing.
No, Mills, this is not working, and you have a very interesting story to tell. Hmm. And we have an audience, and the audience is going to be disappointed. Hmm. Um,
Now, any
we gotta
problems?
fix that one, Mills. I thought we had, you were coming in bright and but we were practicing on a different platform, of course. George, your thoughts?
What about
I don't think we can do
get
this.
closer to the microphone, Mills?
Yeah.
All right, mate. Can you hear me
Mills, let's
now?
try being closer to the microphone, but
Okay,
try this
so
again. Okay, let's
what
hear
about
it.
that?
That's
Very, very.
fine.
Is it?
That's
Don't
fine.
worry about what you look like as long as we can hear you.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Mills,
Terrible anyway.
all right. So you have your family going back. We had Vengarula, who is supposed to be one of your interviewers, and we were talking to him about his Arsenal background. Well, he's back on, but you said your family goes back to the Royal Arsenal, and that one of your
No,
family members was a
no,
founder of
he's
Dial Square.
yeah, Dial
Keep going.
Square. He worked. Everybody, many people on my mum's side of the family worked for at the Arsenal, and so um, he was the guy who started Dial Square FC, and then he was still at the Royal Arsenal as well when
Dial
it still
Square FC is a predecessor to Arsenal, correct?
that's right, by a couple of years or a year, something like that. And then the family legend, from what I know, is that he was involved with sorting out the shirts from Nottingham Forest when they came. Other than that, but I've seen people dispute that. But he is in some of the history books, and other things he isn't involved. So it's kind of one of those strange ones. But he is mentioned, and he is a part of that. And so my grandfather, so later, obviously, my grandfather worked at the Arsenal as well. And then there's a
Really?
strange situation because he went up north during the Second World War to teach the people up there how to make bombs. Obviously, working at the Arsenal. That's where he met my grandmother. Now, her brother, um, he married somebody else, and his grandson ended up playing for Manchester United in goal in the first team. He only played once because he got injured. So,
Yes.
so that was, on a personal note, it was great fun when my brother and I used to play against them as kids. And you scored against Manchester United. It was always a little small victory for us. A small anecdote, but it was funny. So there's that kind of connection with that. And my grandfather, he went obviously many times to the Arsenal, and he went to the Real Madrid game that time and he told me the stories that everybody at half time said, we'll beat them 3-0 or whatever. And they came out and got whopped about 4-0, Arsenal did. But he still said it was fantastic to go and watch it. It was just exciting to see those
Was that the
players.
Puskas team?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But I
I,
don't,
I know, I know of him.
but he said that, that if you were a kid at the Arsenal in those days, they would pick you up. If you were, behind, they would pick you up and pass you over the top and have you at the front so you could see the game. And they would say, "Don't worry, mate, he's all right down here. We'll look after him," and all the other stuff. And then he told me
Yes.
some other story about he was up in the West Stand when the West Stand was standing. I think it was standing upstairs as well in those days. And and some guy was a pickpocket or something had gone on, and the police turned up, and he said all these blokes everywhere just said, "It was me, mate. No, it was me." And then he said somebody on the upper tier at the West Stand said, "No, it was me." And so the policeman just gave up and went off somewhere
Yes.
else at that point.
Well, we all know that from the crowds in most stadiums. You never can arrest anybody if the fans are with you. So Mills, before George asks you any question, you go back to 1927, and you became a Gooner, or you started attending games in 1978. Tell us all about that.
Well, I just had a friend, and he was really really into Arsenal, and I got into Arsenal as well. And that, like I said, probably about the time of the semi-final against Orient, as it was in those days. And then I remember watching the '78 final, and then going into that next season, and that was the season where Brady scored the cracking goal against Tottenham. But what most people don't know is that at the beginning of the next season, we played against Leeds United and we drew 2-2 at home, and Brady scored almost exactly the same goal at Highbury against the North Bank, and he bent it in as well. It was on a lower angle, but if you look at it, you can find it on YouTube, and if you see it, and it was absolutely fantastic, So
Yes.
that was a, you know,
So, Mills, the whole point of having you say this is to say that your roots are deep, and you have been there since '78, and you
yeah,
saw your first trophy in 1988-89 under Graham. You have been through Wenger. Wenger
Leeds.
Ruler is back. He became a supporter because of Wenger. I became a supporter
Fair enough.
because of Wenger. Wenger's gone, but has things really changed? George, fire at him. What is the nature? Fire away at him. Let me not ask him
No.
any question. I've set the table.
Good. Hi, Mills. Right.
Hello.
What I'm interested in is
Yeah.
the the way it used to be for people attending matches. What was the feelings and what were the expectations as against what they are now? We know what they are now. They want to be top four. They want to be challenging for trophies. They want to
Yeah, sure.
be
I,
Yes.
I
entertained.
think
They want a
I think
comfortable seat. They want everything on a silver platter. But tell me what it was like in those days and what the expectations for the normal fan were. You know, when you were going into a season, what were you hoping for? Obviously, you're hoping to win the league, but you know, what were your reasonable expectations going in every year?
no. There wasn't any. I loved Arsenal. There literally wasn't. I mean, if you look at the league record in the first 7 years that I was there, it's not very good.
Yes.
Of course, we were a great cup team. The three cup finals and then the Cup Winners' Cup final, and there was a hope there, and it was. I think the feeling of losing in that time was worse than it is now.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was a kid as well. There's a classic Cup Winners' Cup final story I've got, which is at the time, we were these London Overspill kids, and we went on this school trip to Wales, and we were down there, and that's when the Cup Winners' Cup final was on, and we're in this dormitory, and there's a kid opposite me, and he's got a radio, and I haven't got a radio to listen to the game, and he's a spud, and he's telling me what's going on in the game, and as it comes up, and Graham Rix comes up to take the penalty, and he just says, "Arsenal have missed a penalty, and they've lost."
Oh,
And
fuck.
slowly, I just pulled the covers off over my head and turned over and silently wept in the corner. And it was this horrible, alienating feeling of like, how could they lose? And I loved them so much, those guys. And I'd
But
seen them.
but to follow up on George's question, would the fans have said that Graham Rix is shit? I mean, I was I was in the
There was a lot of
Caribbean.
fighting after that. There was a lot of fighting after that game, wasn't there?
Oh,
So
really?
there was a lot of frustration, and there was a lot of fighting in the old days. I remember the first Tottenham Arsenal game I went to in 19 must have been 80-81 season. Okay, so we got in the ground. We're in the West Stand at that point, and it was fighting really bad. I remember it really badly fighting in the corner just over to the left hand side and on the North Bank, and it was like a pitched battle on the North Bank. And
Wow.
like it was. I mean, I was only about 10, 11, and I was. Do you know what? I was really scared, like really scared, because like the St John's ambulance or like those the what do you have the Maltese Croats people, those people. They were like they were just carting people off from the North Bank all the way down to the clock end or wherever it was to get them out of the stadium as they were injured. And I remember feeling really sorry for these old blokes, and they must have been utterly like bemused at what is this insanity that's going on. And it was literally a pitch battle. The police were down the middle, and the two sides of Arsenal and Tottenham fans would come in. And it was 0-0 at half time. And this guy came up to me, and there was Tottenham fans literally everywhere in the stadium. I mean, it wasn't segregated or anything like that. And this guy came up to me, he must have been about 30, 35, and he just said, "Oi, you, take a seat and watch your team lose." And I just looked at him, I just didn't know what was going on. And then the second half started, and we scored relatively early on, I think. And then the second goal, my final memory of the game is Frank Stapleton getting this ball and lobbing it well into the goal. And I knew this bloke, he must have been absolutely fuming at me. And when he got out of the stadium, I wouldn't look at him. It's like, I'm going to die here, do you know what I mean? But it was, I mean, it was overwhelming. It was massive. There was this incredible smell of tobacco and alcohol everywhere. This
And piss. And
aggression.
piss.
Yeah. And these people, one thing as well is that there wasn't the overload that we've got now. There wasn't endless interviews with people. You had to look at Match of the Day or listen to Radio 2 live, and which I did endlessly as well. My brother and I praying when we were against York City in the FA Cup, and they had penalty in the last minute or whatever it was, and we just sat there just praying to anything, please let it not go in. And it's even worse on the radio because you don't know what's happening, you can't visualize it in any way whatsoever. And of course they smashed it in and they won, and it was utterly gutting. But George, I think the thing is that you could get up quicker. I think that we got up, we got in a bit of a mood about it. My dad will tell you I was always in a mood about it, but my memory is different. But and you went to school with you talk about it with your mates and those things like that. I had a friend who was he was in the Arsenal supporters club from the age of 3 months. And his dad had been a massive Arsenal fan, and he used to go when he was a young man. He went to the games. And he used to go into the ground at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, just to be there because he loved Arsenal so much. And he was a milkman. He got us tickets, and we went to the Milk Cup final in '84. Now, again, people didn't move around very much in England. You know, if you listen to the specials or someone talking, they talked about when they got in their van and they went down to London to play their first gigs, and it was like going to the ends of the earth.
Right.
You know, these rickety old cars and everything. Anyway, so we went, and of course the whole of Merseyside was there, and because he got free tickets being a milkman. So, and we went in, and we were in the Everton end, and it was magic. I mean, it was utterly fantastic. I mean, it was 0-0, and they did a big parade at the end, took a lap of honour. Everyone was singing Merseyside, Merseyside, and I remember coming out, and this kid was walking in front of me, talking to his dad, and saying there could never be an atmosphere like that between London clubs. And I thought,
True.
you're right, but you're wrong, because there was an atmosphere. And that Tottenham game I went to was nuts. The atmosphere was incredible. You know, I mean, it's nothing like the Highbury Library years later when it was very quiet. But so I think it was. But you know, Arsenal Tottenham was just very, very aggressive. You know, so
Vengarula, you're back. You are you have. I want you to fire a question away at Mills because
Absolutely. I was wondering, Mills,
yes, mate.
what has kind of, I mean, we've noticed that the Arsenal audience has kind of changed from a working class club. It has gentrified. It has
Yeah,
been, more middle class.
sure.
But one thing that has also changed is the ownership structure. I mean,
Yeah,
when you had started, there was a board of trustees who were basically entrusted with this responsibility.
that's right. Yeah, Dennis
Yeah,
Hill Wood. Dennis Hill Wood.
I,
I
I,
think. Do you
yeah,
think that?
I
So
just kind of want to understand the sense of what was so different about that club. How was it constructed as a social institution that is kind of, it has a place in its immediate community. That's what I want to understand.
to me,
yes,
if I was really honest, I mean, first thing to add to what you were saying before is I think that the Arsenal is now really international. I think that's something that Wenger brought. I think that also there was the concentration then on the Champions League, and this is my own personal opinion. And I think that, but in the old days, I think it was posh people running the club. He didn't have much to do with them. You know, Dennis Hill would write something. I can just show you something as we go along. You know,
that's
you know,
that's
in
that's the
you
that's
know,
the that's the father, correct? That's
that's
the
right.
father
Yeah,
of the old Hillwood that we know,
yeah.
right?
So he would write something. You know, there he was, Dennis Hill Wood. This is the first game I went. This was in the thing, in the
In the
program about.
magazine
That's right, in the program. Yeah,
program, yeah.
and you know, they got on with it, and that was it. You know, and we came along. I mean, it was very cheap. Well, comparatively cheap. This is. I've got
How
two
much was the
tickets.
ticket?
I've got two tickets. This one is against Gothenburg when we won 5-1. And we went 1-0 down first of all. And I remember this old bloke from the 1930s sitting next to me, and he said, "Don't worry, mate. We'll hammer them on this one. That'll wake them up." You know those little phrases that always stick in you? Every time we go down 1-0 down, I always think, no, that'll wake them up. Of course, it doesn't always, but... And we won the game 5-1, and that was fantastic. And that was £2.50 to get in the West
Wow.
Stand. And I think it was less than a quid to get on the North Bank. I was never a North Bank. I never went on the North Bank. I used to either go in the corners or sometimes in the stands. So I'm a bit boring in that sense. But so I think it was just proletariat people. Maybe there was some middle class people there. I don't know. And the posh people ran it, and it was all that was it. You know, you could only go and find out information through Shoot or Match magazine, something like that, which we used to buy. But mostly it was gossip and your mates and listening to the radio and reading the programs. Or uh, shit, where is it? Here. Used to be this thing called the Arsenal Handbook. I've lost the cover on this one. And it used to come. I don't know if they still do it. And it used to come out every year, and it's packed full of stats and facts and figures. This one's even got a complete incorrect printing with Clive Allen being signed,
Be
who was like
as
this
great
millionaire playing,
as it
and
is today.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Yes. Clive
so you
Allen,
know.
Clive Allen, Arsenal and Spurs. Was there's more Spurs now than Arsenal? Son of
That's
a
right.
gun.
He came, didn't he? And then he left immediately before he even kicked the ball. So that was a kind of an odd one. But I think that Wenger. I think for me, Wenger made Arsenal international. It was him. the players. I think it was already happening in Britain. I remember. I think Ruud Gullit really started things for me. For me, that was the way I saw it: bringing in players, moving it all around. And I mean, it was a big deal when Viv Anderson came as well. I mean, I really like Viv Anderson. Again, it's back to the, I like a lot of players who a lot of other people don't. And he got stick all the time about being an Arsenal reject during the games when he'd moved on. And I never understood why I liked him. And of course, my view, who cares, but that was the way they felt about it. But I really liked him. I felt really great that Arsenal was moving on and different players coming in and stuff like that, so. But once we became international, I was thinking this today about who owns Arsenal. It was very competitive when we were kids, and who's the big Arsenal fan? I've been to more matches than you, and I've got all the accoutrements and all that kind of stuff. And I came from relatively poor family, so I never had an Arsenal top or anything like that. I've got scarves, and I used to try and hustle the guys outside the grounds a little bit, and always say, like, trying to get a badge or a rosette or something, and I always say, it's for my brother. And he did always say, "That's a good one, mate, for your brother. I've heard that." And he would still knock a bit off and give me a bit cheaper, So, I couldn't really afford the Arsenal top or something. And it was gutting, There it was, the 1979-80 kit, Umbro, 20 quid. I was nearly crying. I wanted it so much and couldn't get it, But that's what life was like then, People didn't have, George would tell you, people didn't have much money. You did the best you could, and...
Did you have some to bring this back to George so he can follow up on what Wenger ruler?
So,
You'd have Northerners like George supporting the club in such a passionate way. George, is that a fair question?
No, that wouldn't have happened. No, there wasn't. The internet and Sky Sports made it possible for remote fans to feel deeply involved. Local fans will tell you they're not deeply involved, but
yes,
you can feel deeply involved. Like Wenger there over in Pakistan, you can feel involved with Arsenal. You can feel part of Arsenal because there's so much contact with the club, so much going on, so much information, so much interaction on social media platforms that you can actually feel involved. No, that could never have happened in the old days when I was younger. No, it just wasn't on. You would have had to have some family link. It would have had to be your dad supported Arsenal and was from London originally, something like that. Or you would just have supported a local team. It could never happen, no.
Well, I like to tell you guys that the only international team when I grew up was Manchester United. The English media and Wenger ruler can tell you that. I mean, if you went to your local library, there are books about Busby Babes. It's only in the case of Jamaica and the Caribbean, you had when those black guys started playing for Arsenal or for Watford and John Barnes going to Liverpool. I told you that story before, but he was at Watford, by the way.
He was.
People's loyalties begin to divide.
Here he is, mate.
It was only Manchester United we in the colonies had to refer to as a football team.
Because they had been winning for so long that there was already this huge thing of we are with the winners. So by the time Arsene Wenger comes around, and we are looking at this gorgeous, sexy football, and it's like it's different,
yes,
and it's potentially better than Manchester United, and it's potentially sexier and everything, right? So, I mean, literally, this is a 16, 17, 18-year-old guy who's just watched one game, who's watched two strikers pull apart a team of grown men, of 11 men, and just these two strikers are pulling them apart. And there's this guy standing there, lanky, tall man, and who's clapping from the sidelines. And it was like, whoa. And, of course, being international and being a kid, first time experience, everyone's thinking, oh, so this guy made this club, right? So Arsene and Arsenal. So you have that kind of misconception as well. That kind of helped, actually. But you have those kinds of things as well. Now, for a kid to come out because you have to understand, a lot of bullies in school supported Manchester United. The worst kind of humans supported Manchester United, even in Pakistan. Right? So You didn't want to
Vegarula,
be a Manchester
you're
United
earning a lot of
supporter.
you're earning a lot of points here for Arsenal fans. Keep going, my friend.
It's a very different experience, right? It's as George says, it's now you're a global citizen. You are connected. You have an opinion. You can potentially even apply for a job to Arsenal.
Yes.
It's so global now. Back at that time, it wasn't that way. In fact, even up to 2010s, it wasn't that way. So, for example, if I were to have met Mills, my apologies for the dogs. For example, if I were to have met Mills on social media, on Twitter, there was obviously going to be for a few years, there had been a lot of, distrust amongst each other. Who is this guy? Where is he from? Who is this woman? Where is she from? Why is she tweeting about Arsenal? The woman might be from Croatia. The man might be from freaking Australia. It was just we kind of took a few years just to get to know each other in online forms, in online communities, just to understand that, all right, these guys go to the games, well done. We also have opinions. We stay up at nights, our love is also genuine. I
So,
mean, sorry. So I'm just, it's very interesting knowing Mills and George, who've had these family connections to Arsenal, who've gone to these games, and it's very interesting when they talk about their relationship with the intimacy that the club had, right? So the
but I want
intimacy
to
of the
ask
club
Mills
at
though,
that time.
Vegarula. I want to ask
Hmm.
Mills as a follow up to what you said and what George said. Mills, how much is it better and how much is it worse? I'm going to ask you. This internationalization of Arsenal.
Oh, I don't have any problem with internationalisation of anything. I don't. Like, on my side, that's not a problem. The person who's not living in England, wherever, and they want to be part of it, they're part of it. It's like that whole
Yes.
story that was in Richard Barnes's book about mods. The mod who's in a little small provincial city somewhere, sitting in a horrible cafe with his burger that's all flaccid. He's just the same as the London mods or whatever. He's part of the dream. He may not be part of it directly in some way. You can go to the games and buy all the equipment or whatever. They're still part of it. It's not the same anymore like it was. It's just not. Everybody's part of it. Everybody's in it. I think that's a great thing. I don't see why.
Well,
Look, I've got no claim to the club. I don't own the club. I think we're caretakers. I know that sounds a bit hippie, and I don't mean it in that sort of a dumb way like that. But we're here for a short time on the planet, and we look after it. And I don't really like the way that people are looking after the club at the moment.
we'll come to that. But
And I think we did
th-
look after the club in the past, even when we were really struggling. After the Brady era, we struggled for a long time. I was looking at those players in the programs, and we did the best we could for a long time. And George came in, George Graham, and he started like pulling it together, and he was sort of up and down, and then it got pretty good, with him.
so that takes us to the contemporary era.
Can I can I can
You
I can I, can I ask something?
yes.
Yeah.
Since George has now George Graham, there is currently a divide between let's say those who loved George Graham more and who grew up in that generation versus those who grew up in Arsene Wenger's time. And a lot of people kind of see Mikel Arteta to be the second coming of George Graham. Do you feel that's the way, and do you feel that the rebuild that's happening is cast in the same way, or are there significant differences?
Who's that one for? For
That's
me,
for you, Mills. You are the man of the moment.
uh,
But I want to hear George's
at least
opinion on that, by the way,
George,
when you're done.
George Graham had a strong defence. I don't. Is Arteta's defence as good? I don't, I don't know. No, I don't think he is. I don't know whether he's going to make it through to Christmas. That's what I think. I mean, who cares? It's speculation. I've got no idea what's going to happen. I think Emery and Arteta have caused an incredible amount of destruction, and I don't know why it's happened. I can't think why the players know why it's happened. I was thinking today about how it must have been for those Emery sides because they cruised a long time on what had gone on with Wenger, and then it kind of, like I was saying to you the other day, it was that time. I know other people on PA were fed up a lot of time, long time before, but it was that night when Notre Dame was burning and we were playing against Watford, and it just fell apart. And that was it. You just feel it's finished. anything that we were doing playing in
How much did we lose? I didn't check the result. How much did we lose to Watford that night? That was one of the first times we lose to
It was
Watford in the
was it-
league, didn't it? Isn't that correct?
no,
Don't worry about the result.
we
It was the
lost
first
many
time we had lost to Watford for years.
Yeah, since these two games, these ones here, these two games I went to see, and it was horrible. It was horrible.
I think it was the first time we lost to Watford in the Premier League. I think that is what it is. And you're saying that it was just you. It struck you very much.
Yeah, that was the point when I just switched off, and that wasn't it. And I remember coming on and saying, and Eddie said, "So I can't believe that you've." He said something. I can't remember what it was. Like, oh, so you finally lost your tolerance or whatever. It was really funny what he wrote, and I just felt like, oh, why have I tolerated this so long? And and we were trying to hold on to the positive ethic for a long time at PA, and it wasn't possible. It wasn't possible.
This is that positive, George. So,
Right.
what are your thoughts about that?
Well, on a general note I have a theory that football fans are generally tribal. It used to be the old-fashioned, you had a tribe of Arsenal fans against a tribe of Tottenham Hotspur fans, and it was all about confrontation. Your own little tribe and confrontation with the other tribe. The trouble is now, there's tribes within tribes.
Yes.
Tribes within the Arsenal fan base, and we're following the same confrontational route. We're competing and fighting against other Arsenal fans because now we can, because the internet allows us to. And you see it over every new player, every old player, every manager. There's a divide. People on one side fighting, and they're convinced they're right. They're absolutely convinced they're right. And on the other side, they're also convinced they're right. And neither side's listening to the other. And there's a lot of people in the middle looking and shuffling to one camp or the other, depending on whether we win, lose, or draw in the week. But it's all about confrontation these days, I think. It's like, it's taken supporting in a different way. To be a supporter now, you have to be more and more confrontational with the other side. So you need another side to argue with. The whole situation's it's a bit like the country. It's getting more, in my opinion, more divided as time goes by. And I don't think...
George, do you feel football is more like religion now? From tribes to religion?
Equally.
I mean, I'm saying that because too much of religion gets too much.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm just going back to what Mills was saying about, watching transfers on BBC, for example, Match of the Day. You'll have one or two news about it. You won't have that constant onslaught of information 24/7, right? It's too much information, and it's too much anxiety causing information these days. That is what feeds into these tribal camps that you're talking about. I mean, it's a fabulous point that Mills was making about that time where information was controlled. It was, we received 2 drops out of a sea. And it gave us time to consume that, to understand that, to kind of feel all of those things, to feel our feelings. Now it's instant. You need to feel instant emotion, right? That's unhealthy, I feel.
The difference was, we used to argue about facts. We have signed Malcolm McDonald. Now we'll have an argument whether we should have signed Malcolm McDonald or not. But that's a fact. We've signed him. Now we can have 100 arguments about players that we're not going to sign, that we were never going to sign. But we're arguing about them. We're fighting about them. There's James Maddison in camp. There's a James Maddison, there's a load of shite camp. And there's James Maddison's worth 20 million. There's James Maddison's worth 80 million. And we're arguing about something that isn't a fact. It's a speculation. We're fighting about speculation most of the time. We're fighting about what Arteta is supposed to be doing. We're speculating about where he's going. what his problems are, what his direction is. We're speculating it and we're arguing about it. Whereas we used to only be able to argue after the event of losing a game of football. You know, that was
Well, you
it.
know, George.
And, e-
George,
and even
you're right.
even then you only had a few friends in the pub, or your mates at
Yeah.
school, or your work friends. There's only very few people. You know, there was
And
only me and my mate. Sorry, go on. Go on.
the big difference was you get a smack in the mouth if you took it too far in the pub. Now you can't give anybody a smack.
Nope.
You've got to. Anybody can say anything they want in any way they want and upset as many people as they want without getting a smack in the mouth.
Let
There's
me
no
tell you something,
restraint.
George. Let me tell you
You've
guys
got
something. George, let me tell you something. If you if you tell a guy that he's talking shit on Twitter, he reports you and you're banned. Okay? You tell him he's a nonce, you're almost in trouble. You have got to. This is crazy, and therefore the guy can come up and say anything. And it's a the social media feeds this. I am convinced of it. But let's go back to Mills and Mills. I check this. Throughout your career as a supporter, you have seen 12 managers. You may not have counted this, but you have seen 12 managers, the last three in the last 3 years. How is this transition, this new manager, how is this compared to what you have seen in the past? You've spoken about the leaving of Brady, and you've said that it was just as bad as Van Persie. You didn't go into it, but
I didn't
just
get
because a
fired on
lot
that
of
one.
people don't even remember Brady. But what about today?
Well,
The
Liam. Well,
transition of managers. How does that compare to when you were a fan in 1978 coming up?
yeah, sure. I don't know. We just went through that fallow period until George came in. But I like those. I know I liked Don Howe. I liked him. I thought he was a good guy. You know, I didn't have any
Mills,
even.
Mills, Mills.
Sorry,
Always
can't hear
keep
it.
close to the mic. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
I liked Don Howe. I thought he was a good guy. You know, I was a young boy as well. You know, so and I think I think something. You know, Brady left because he said that Terry Neal and the club didn't want to go in the direction he wanted to go into, and he felt they could have gone further. And for some reason or other, it wasn't going in that direction. Well, I don't know. It was very difficult, I would say, after going in. Just my memory of it, going into 82, 83, 84, maybe 85 as well. You know, the attendances were really down from what I remember, and it was at a low ebb in the club. And other people have probably got other memories that it wasn't like that, but that was the way I remember it. And we got a lot of players in who were great who are just forgotten now. Oh, and don't get mentioned people like Tony Woodcock. I mean, he held the Arsenal up as far as I was concerned. I mean, he was fabulous. But I remember we played in. I can't remember what year it was. Maybe 83. Somebody else will remember. And we played against Manchester United in the semi-final of the cup. And if you look at the game now, you think Arsenal got a chance at the beginning of the game, and they didn't. There was something at the club where we was like playing with concrete boots on all the time. You're struggling. You're struggling in it was something wasn't working. I don't know what it was. Was it Don Howe? I don't know. Did George have a better idea of things when he came in? Certainly things picked up, and there was more hope there. Of course, then there was a few shuffle and scrape years with in the League Cup finals, but it got things going. And poor old Bonnie Prince Charlie when he came, that didn't work out, and there was too much hype on him at the time as well, too much pressure on his shoulders. But
Who you call Bonnie Prince Charlie?
oh, what's his name who came down
Charlie
from
Who else?
Nichols.
yeah, and
Charlie Nichols.
the king of the mullets.
Oh,
He
okay,
was,
okay, okay.
he, and I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember when he came and there was that thing in the sun where he had these
I think
little
I,
little
I thought
pistols to
I
show
thought
he
y'all
was a
called him Champagne
sharpshooter,
George.
and he was the big hope, and it didn't work out, and I don't know the transition. I don't know whether there was a transition in the way that there was because I don't think there was anybody like Wenger at the club. I mean, Wenger to me just took it, turned it upside down, and he was this incredible side playing incredible football for a long, 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 long time. And
So you're saying that Graham was just an evolution from Don Hoden. I mean,
yeah,
or
or,
from
or from everything that had gone on before. That's my opinion. Other people might have something and say that's completely wrong, but that was the way I perceived it. I
yeah.
just felt like when Wenger came in, I really felt like this was something so shocking. Those two first doubles. I mean, nearly back to back. And if you look at the stats, the year when Manchester United did the treble, what did we lose? We lost that. Do you remember that semi-final? I remember going out to do an exhibition somewhere in that Manchester area, and they had that semi-final games being sold double video, and it just said the epic. And of course, it was one of the most horrible matches ever for an Arsenal fan. But there was nothing like it. I remember I'd been 30 just a few days, the day before the first semi-final when it was 0-0. I remember us soaking up the pressure from them, and I had a very bad hangover that day as well, watching that game with my brother in the pub. And then it came to the evening game, and I just, what a game it was. I mean, I remember I'm on the radio, and they were saying, Manchester United must capitulate now. This is only Arsenal. And then poor old Paddy decides to give the ball to Giggs.
Yes.
We didn't make it through to the cup final. And then O'Leary doesn't lie down in the last game. Now, there's no reason why he should, and Leeds were very competitive at that time as well. And so I think, what was it, a draw? They beat us 1-0 or something. So we missed out on the league by about, what was it?
1 point.
Something.
1 point.
That's right, yeah. And then Manure, they did they won the Champions League in the last seconds, which was unbelievable as well, really, all fairness to them. So again, all the time with Wenger was this closeness. And as soon as the big money, the new money clubs came in, that was it. And then you start to see what a remarkable job Wenger did with the players that he was grabbing and how he was training them and playing them. And there was nobody like him, and there's nobody like him now. Nobody can get hold of a team like he can and change it around and give us something special.
But they're gonna say you're biased. They're gonna say you're biased, Mills. George, is that what they're gonna say?
Of course, I'm an Arsenal fan. I don't know whether there's any objectivity anyway. I think there's only subjectivity. But even so, I'm just saying about how my experience of what it was like. There was nothing like him before, and there's certainly not been anything like him since. That's all. And I wish there
George,
had been. I wish that the club had got together and said, look, let's get somebody in and carry this, not get rid of everybody. You guys, when you were talking, I don't know, it was last week or the week before, and you were saying about the players that left. When Emery came in, and it's shocking.
it's
Oh, it's like the Exodus. Everybody left. Okay, everybody didn't.
well, he
leave,
let
but
them go. He let them go. He didn't. They didn't just leave. He let them go. George, fire a question away. You must have another question for Mills or comment.
No, I've had enough of this now.
why are you so boring, Mills?
But certainly, Mills, you're saying that this has been a shocking transition.
No, it's failed, isn't it? Really. All
But
right.
most people disagree with you.
Okay, I've got a question for you guys. Do you think we would have won? What was it? The quarterfinal game against Sheffield United. Do you think we would have won that game if there'd been a full stadium at Sheffield? Because I don't think we would have done. They had the strongest 12th man in the league at that time, and they missed it last season. And look what happened to them. They were tough. They were tough to beat there. Would we have beaten them? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I have you. You just fire one there at me. That's a surprise. Vengarula, you take a stab at that. I mean, I
I'm
for
actually
one
going
think.
to ask another question. I'm going
Go
to
ahead.
ask
Go ahead.
another question. I wanted to understand how was it when George kind of came in and the boring Arsenal, the 1-0 to the Arsenal became, from a joke, it became very, very serious.
Well, I didn't care. We were winning. It was fine. If you look at a lot of the games, it wasn't just 1-0.
How was it? What was the emotional process behind it? And did you guys even have the imagination that a different kind of football was possible? I mean, currently our generation has that imagination that a Wenger ball kind of thing exists, right? And we can have something of that sort. But when George was around, I want to understand whether people accepted it wholeheartedly that this is the game that we'll play.
I think there was different periods in George Graham's time as well, like there was with Wenger. There's different eras, different periods of how they were playing the football. I mean, if you look at everybody knows '89, and if you look at that season, we were playing some pretty nice football, I would say. And even that game against Liverpool, this wasn't boring Arsenal. I mean,
The one.
when we did score that goal and we won it, that was an incredible moment. Yeah, really an incredible moment. Because I remember that. I want to tell you a little boring stories about this that happened, because some of it I was thinking today about how Arsenal weaves in and out of your life. I went to the game. it's very sad because I went with one of my friends who died 20 years ago, but we went with a game with him, and we went to Arsenal Newcastle, and that was the day of Hillsborough, and that was pretty shocking what happened. And I think Brian McDermott scored a couple of goals that day. Anyway, we went back up to college, and the guy in the room next door to me had gone to Hillsborough. Now, what happened was he went into the stadium, and he went into that pen, and he said, "This is a terrible position. I'm not going to go." And he went off, he managed to get off to another side, and that saved his life. Anyway, so I went back up, and he wasn't there when we got back to the place where we all lived or whatever. So I phoned him up, and I got hold of his mum, and his mum, all the lads were all hanging around, and as I did it, and his mum was crying on the phone. They'd obviously lost somebody in the disaster. And I said, "Is Mark there?" Thinking he's dead, No, he's coming back. He's coming back tomorrow, don't worry. So he came back and he told us all about how utterly horrific it was. And anyway, we went. I remember as it went on, and Arsenal just completely started capitulating towards the end, and it was just this insane, the insane statistics with everything. And then I remember the West Ham game, and I remember it being in midweek or whatever it was, or a few days before, I can't remember, and lying there listening to it on the radio and thinking, come on, Jans, give us a break. And they didn't. I think they lost. I can't remember what it was. 4-1. I don't know. 3-1. I can't remember. And they went to that game, and this kid I lived with. He was a Chester City fan. He came up to me and said, "I'll tell you, man, Arsenal are going to do this because it's a really weird number. It's going to be 2-0." And the bloke I lived with, a guy I knew in that house pretty well. His dad was lifelong. We watched that game, and when that second goal went in,
You mean the
I
Mark
remember
Thomas goal?
I remember the beer cans we threw them up in the air, and there's all these big stains on the ceiling.
Hmm.
But then afterwards, that last period of time when he flicks it back to Lukic, and then later it gets booted out in Perry Groves, and then it's ended. I remember my hands shaking, and then running in the street after it, and there was nothing in the street because, of course, there was no Arsenal fans there because we were living in Preston or whatever. You just couldn't believe it. It was like such a surreal moment. It was beyond all your dreams. What was Arsenal? They were going to win the league. They weren't going to win the league. We were a bit of a cup team, you know. And there was that moment. And then poor old Mark, the guy had been at Hillsborough, he came back that night, and we all thought he's going to be in a massive. He just came up to me and shook my hand and said, "Well played, mate." He said, "You guys, that was unbelievable."
Yeah.
Years later, I dated a girl who lived in Liverpool. And when I met her family for the first time, I met her brother. And I asked him if he remembered that game, and he just looked at me and said, "Yes, I went to that game."
He did go.
And personally, I felt really sorry for the bloke, but Arsenal didn't have many magic moments, in my opinion. I don't think we did. Some of the football was sterile. Were we more tolerant in those days? Yes, I think we were more tolerant. I think, yes, it was boring Arsenal, but it wasn't always boring Arsenal. And then Wenger changed it around completely and utterly. And
So
then
where?
as soon as
So
he leaves, we don't play particularly interesting football anymore. Do we? Do you think we do? 'Cause I'm not sure we do.
well, me and George talk about this all the time, and I don't want this to be about our opinion today per se. But um, Mills, you're suggesting that we don't play interesting football, and I was like,
Relatively.
I told you yesterday I wouldn't spend the $2,000 that I spent to go and watch Wenger ball in 20. The last time I did was 2018. So that's to tell you the difference between the ball today. I wouldn't spend that kind of money. I don't know about you, Wenger ruler, because it costs a ton load of money. I don't know if people realize this. For us to come from the Caribbean or from Pakistan or from India or from anywhere in the world to come and watch football, so if you want to talk about voting with our pocket, that's the problem. You're not going to have many of us voting with our pocket with the kind of football today.
But also, do you think, like in the old days, like years ago, I don't know whether you picked your club and you just stuck with it.
Yes.
I don't know I don't think expectations were as high. Look, Champions League, when we went to that Champions League final, this was beyond my thinking from my experience of being an Arsenal fan. He got us into the, the top class. It was just beyond everything. And those are the two games I can't watch, the Champions League final and game 50. I said this the other day to you. Because it's just,
Don't let my blood boil.
there we go. But the Champions League is just it's beyond everything. This wasn't the Cup Winners' Cup final, or the Fairs Cup, or those were fantastic moments. I didn't see the Fairs Cup; that was before my time. But I knew people who did, and they said how fantastic it was. And but I don't know. The Champions League was beyond my thinking, beyond Arsenal's thinking. But then after that, how many people had come into the club and they thought this is normal Champions League football all the time? Because Wenger, for me, Wenger was so incredible because also it was like nothing I'd ever seen. I'd never seen this at Arsenal. Okay, so my sort of 78, 79, sort of 79, 80 period, it was fantastic to watch. Ricks and Brady play. I remember the old guys, the old gaffers at Arsenal. They'd always say, "Bloody hell, it's always down that left hand side," and they were fabulous. I mean, people just were applauding the things that were going on. But as much as I love Liam, and like I said about the dimple and doing the moves up the park and emulating him and thinking, my mate went in a competition to try and win his boots, from Match magazine without the studs in it. That's what we thought of this guy, but he wasn't Mesut Ozil, nowhere near. That Mesut to me is like a small genius, like I really mean a real genius. I don't just mean like everybody's a genius these days because you write something interesting or you've written a nice song or something. I'm talking about something. Geniuses are very, very few, and they change the human race. To me, the way that guy played, his intellect. And all right, everybody moaned about he didn't get back. He goes missing in games. So did Brady. Go look at the games now. Go look at them. What did Brady really?
No.
Was he really controlling the games or playing them around? I don't think he was. But don't get me wrong. I mean, the players that have come through Arsenal through the Wenger years. I mean, it's just utterly fantastic to watch them. I mean, it's just fantastic. And they lost a lot of the time as well. It's just something everybody forgets. It wasn't all. I remember going up to Sunderland. My brother was working up in Newcastle. We got some tickets with his mate, and we went down to see. We went to see. We were in the stands, and it was an horrible day. It was cold. I had the best fish and chips of my life on that day. Absolutely incredible. And they were good. They were nice people, and they sussed us that we were Arsenal fans, right? And they said to us, "Are you students?" So we were, of course, really offended by this because no one wants to be called a student. And then he goes, "You're bloody Arsenal fans, aren't you?" We said, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, "Don't worry, you're all right." Of course, we lost. But, it
Your
was still
accent
magic.
gave you away. Your
We
accent
said,
gave you away.
I
You
know,
don't
I
have a
know.
you don't have a Geordie
Should
accent.
have been
Forget
the
it.
old floater. Anyway, my mate, I can't remember who it was. My mate Matt, who was in the supporters club in 3 months. He went to see Arsenal sometime in the mid '80s, and I can't remember what the scoreline was. We lost really loads, like 5 or 6 nil. I can't remember.
Wow.
And he just said to me, I said, "How was it?" On Monday morning when he came into school, how was it? And he just said, "It was magic, mate. It was magic." I said, "What do you mean? We just lost like 5-0." He said, "No, no, no. It was magic." And that attitude, that's what it was like in the old days, at least as we were growing up. It was still this incredible moment. I can't tell you what it was like to go in that stadium on the 21st of August, 1979, and see come down through the back of the East Stand and smell all the tobacco and the beer and all these adult men in this place, how strange it was to be a little kid. And there's Pat Jennings kicking the ball around, warming up the other guys. I can't tell you what it meant because there was no overdose in those days. It
Right.
wasn't endless. There wasn't a website for Arsenal. There was the handbook. Here it was, and I read it every day. I
Yeah.
didn't read anything else. I read this. I
Yes.
looked at the endless stats, and it is endless stats in here. Everybody playing, and I always used to go through the games. When we lost against Swindon, 4-3 in the second leg of the League Cup, and I refused to believe we lost. I'd look at
Y-
that lineup and say, how does that team with Brady and Sunderland and Stapleton and Riggs and David Price and probably John Hollins or whoever, how did we lose? We couldn't have lost. We won. We won. I wouldn't let it sink in. Oh, that's bullshit. But that's what it was like being an Arsenal fan. It was incredible. And then there was this horrible time when we lost to York, and it was gutting. And you took it. And then we lost to Oxford in the bloody League Cup that time, and that was an incredible game. And the Manor Ground's gone now, but it was excellent. And we could just about get Radio Oxford at that time on. If you swung the area around a bit. And I remember listening into trying to listen into the radio on that one because it wasn't live on radio. What was Radio 2 then? There was no Radio 5 live. It was Radio 2. And we lost, but it was bloody fantastic. The games were so exciting. They were, to me, maybe I'm naive and I don't know enough about football or some other crap. I don't know. Somebody else has got a bigger opinion than me because they've got a big Twitter account or something. It doesn't matter. I wanted to say before I came on that, I'm not the guru. I'm just a bloke who supported Arsenal for a long time. I was lucky enough if I have some family connections. But to be really honest with you, I found out those about years later. If I'd have been at school, it'd have been fantastic. Miller fucking is, his great uncle or whatever started the Arsenal. That's a good one to play at school. But I don't feel that competitive about it. I don't feel like I own Arsenal. I feel like I don't think it's the marriage. I was thinking about this today. It's not a marriage at all. Because if you're in a marriage and you don't like somebody, you're not going to stay in it, are you? Not really. You're going to leave. And I can't leave Arsenal. What can I do? Everybody on PA, I think for me, I love coming on there because I think they know more about Arsenal than I do. I can find out what's going on. I can find out about other people's opinions. Hopefully, sometimes I can write something that's relatively okay, and people like that maybe as well. And it's like a community of people that I haven't got. So I'm really grateful for that. And it's like coming in on Monday morning at school and talking to your mate. I only had my mate Matt. The other guys didn't support Arsenal in my class or whatever. They were Watford fans or whatever. They were Chelsea or something like that. So, when you've got those kind of mates, I know my brother was a big Arsenal fan as well, so he joined about the same time as I did. So, he went to a stack of games and stuff like that as well. So, he'd always be talking about these things, and it's having that community. And now the community's massive. This is back to what George is saying about it's broken. It's this classic postmodernist malaise. Sorry to be pretentious about it, but if modernism was a ball, postmodernism is somebody getting a hammer and hammering the crap out of the ball, and we're all in these little pieces. But it's like, how do you get on? How does it work? And it doesn't at the moment, because the internet in the last 10 years is a relatively sort of in
Yes.
the last 10 years, the intensity is really in like a new phenomena in a way. And it's pulling everything apart. Now, I'm criticizing Arteta and the way the lads are playing and those things. But I couldn't do any better. I couldn't, otherwise I'd be in the job. Being paid millions not talking to you guys. But it's
Well,
much nicer to talk to you guys than
well,
getting all the shit they do. And it's really...
Mills. I'm gonna ask George to and
Sorry,
George
go on.
and Wenger ruler to pose the last questions. But I'm gonna say to the audience out there, we've been up and down. We're now down to three listeners, and I'm gonna tell all the people who listen to this and view this this live stream and we need you to hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe, because that's the only way we're gonna get anywhere in terms of attention, because you get to the bottom of the heap on YouTube if you don't have subscribers. Doesn't matter how good your content is. But the point I want to make is that we need there's a lots of people like you, Mills. People, honest people who want a place where they can discuss Arsenal without having a million people telling them that they are cunts
Well,
and they don't
basically,
know anything.
then we need people like George. And what I really liked Untold, and I really liked going over there, and I really missed guys like Indra Brickfield Gunners. I was very good friends with him offline as well. He's a really lovely bloke. I couldn't stand getting slagged off all the time and being, and then make aspersions about you and all these things. It's like, all right, I'm not at school anymore. This is not
Yes.
1981. And I liked George's policy. I liked his door policy. It was strict. It was super strict as well, and it was extremely intolerant, and it was really great because it was like being in this special underground nuclear bunker. George
Yes.
did all the dirty work on Twitter, fighting everybody, and we could just like talk and have a relatively good time,
Okay,
So
George, your last question, and Wenger ruler, you will have the last after that. After that, George, fire away.
Well, I don't really have a question that
Or comment, George.
that would interest Mills at all.
oh, come on, no, come on.
I'd just like to thank you for coming on and
Curing insomnia.
and telling us, what it was like, because I don't know, I don't know what it was like, because I'm living in Blackburn, and I just wanted to know whether it had changed, and it has changed.
Yes, it has. It changed.
You know.
It changed. It was always changing. It always changed. The 78. Look, it's a really weird thing. Look at the kits for the 1978 Cup final. Look at the kits for the '79 Cup final. Look at the haircuts. Everything changed immediately, and they decided to come into the modern world. Now there was a couple of other teams who were already doing it. Manu were doing it, and so was Southampton and a few others. They already had more modern kits in '76, and then it changed, and then the '80s started, and there was new kits and a new time when we went into that, and then all the way through the '80s it was changing all the time. Probably people were more tolerant. It wasn't overdosed with endless interviews, endless, there was nothing like there is now with blogs and podcasts and everything. There was nothing like that, and let's face it now, you have to listen to a lot of stuff on double speed. If you've got any time in the day, you listen to the podcast, you've got to listen to 3 or 4 or whatever it is. And I think there was an incredible amount of pain, and it was difficult to be an Arsenal fan, but I think people took things in a different way. And I'm not trying to say that they took it that was great, because maybe it wasn't, and maybe a lot of other Arsenal fans who invested more money than me and more time than me and more passion than I did, they would have something else to say about that. And it did make you narky. I mean, and I remember when did we lose that game in the Cup Winners' Cup final against, was it Fibonacci? Gee, man, I was sitting with a load of guys that night, and they were giving me nothing but shit. And I had that horrible pain like being a kid again, but you just took it. I don't know if we take it. Do we take it so easily now?
Oh no,
You
there'll
can't
be a million
start
people coming
ranting.
online, Mills,
You know,
with their podcasts and with their live streams, and they want everybody in the team sold. Bengarula, are you there? Can you ask? You have a final question, comment from Mills? We're back to Pakistani.
I think we better wrap it up here, Shorty.
Yes. Bengarula, my boss has motioned. Mills, thank you for providing that perspective. We had at points up to 9 viewers, so I think people are enjoying what you said, and I found it educational for me. 2,000 miles away, well, not quite 2,000, but nearly. You know what I mean. And most of my knowledge of Arsenal came when I came on board in 2006, and began to read voraciously and to participate and to learn from people like you and George. George, what was that great fan of ours that started Positively Arsenal with you? What's his name again?
Frank?
Frank taught me what it meant to be a fan. You're a fan for life. You're loyal to your club.
I want to say one thing. I want to say one thing, which is like, today as I was going through things, I thought about Ian Snelling, GF60.
Yes.
He sent me the whole of his archive of his memories before he died.
Really?
Of Arsenal, and I was looking at those, and it made me feel really sad. Now that guy, he would have really been incredible on this show.
Yes.
Because his memories went back to 1947. And he talked about the time when he got beaten up by a Tottenham fan. He was only 10 years old. It was utterly insane.
Yeah, I used to read his articles. I always read his articles, by the way.
And it made me feel very sad to think, and I don't know what to do with that archive. They're all there, all these memories, and they went back a long while. They're all just sitting there, So
you need to write a book. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Mills, especially.
Well, thanks for having me on. I hope it was okay. And like I said, I'm not the guru. I'm not the most passionate Arsenal fan. I'm not the longest. I haven't bought the most kits. I haven't been to the most games. But it's just a perspective. And everybody has a little perspective. And they're all part of the bigger story, the big stream of what Arsenal is.
Yes.
That's all. It was unique and it was interesting. And, and it got very, very good to be an Arsenal fan for a long time. It was fantastic. Even in the years when we weren't winning anything, it was still fantastic. I remember meeting this couple when we lived in Berlin, and they were Scousers, and they were in the local shop. I was going to get some booze at the time. It's a long time ago now, I told them, I said, "Have you seen the results tonight?" Blah blah blah. And I told them what Liverpool had done, and they said, "Who do you support?" And I said, "Arsenal." They said, "Oh, we love Arsenal. We can't stop watching them. They're so fantastic." And that's when I really knew that, although we weren't winning anything, we seemed to be respected. Maybe that was only one person. Everybody else thought we were shite or something, but we were playing such fantastic football, and
those memories, George. I will say this, Mills,
Sorry.
and George and Wengarul, if you can hear me. The memories of us playing fantastic football will never go away. It is indelible in our memories, and that is something we should aspire to. Thank you very much, Mills.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me.
George.
Take care of
Thank you,
yourselves.
Vendor Ruler. It was a pleasure having you. And thanks to all these people who tuned in and who will be listening to this as a podcast or seeing this live stream on YouTube or on Periscope and Twitter. If you're on YouTube, hit that, smash that like button and subscribe. We need your support. Thank you very much. Bye.